4:30 Eastern Standard. We don't know what that's about, but it could be about Gaza and the plans for America to be involved in the redevelopment of Gaza. So we'll be carrying that, of course, live. And then we have our reporter on the ground in Israel, Aaron Lavarco, ready and standing by to respond to whatever is said, if it is indeed related to the Middle East, Israel, and Gaza. We are going to also, as I said, be joined in just a few minutes by Alex Newman as well. But first up is Colonel Rob Maness, robmaness.com. You should read his bio, former commander of Kirtland Air Force Base. He has got a very impressive resume with his background in the military, national security, and in the area of nuclear deterrent, and so much more. One of just a couple guys to write the black book that goes with the nuclear football carried by the President of the United States. And we're so honored that he's a part of our team here at Worldview Tube. He's also a fellow Mississippian, because that's where I was born, was Mississippi. And that's where he resides. So we are fellow Mississippians. I knew there was something I liked about him the first day I heard him on the air. And he joins us now. Colonel, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us on these 74 plus Christian radio stations.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
All right, let's turn real quick to what's going on in Georgia. What all are you hearing down there? And as a former commander of Kirtland Air Force Base, what goes through your mind, and what kind of procedures did you have in place for active shooters?
Well, I heard your initial reporting. I saw some reporting just before I came on that there might be 7 casualties, possibly 1 fatal.
Oh, wow.
I hope that's not accurate, but that's what I hear is the current situation. Unfortunately, we live in a time, even today, with a high terrorist threat and a high threat of even fellow Americans that want to attack the government. We live in a time where installation commanders are not authorizing their troops to be armed when on duty on a regular basis when they're at home inside the United States. And, I left the Air Force in late 2012. My last job, I was an installation commander. I had the authority to allow concealed carry permit holders that otherwise had access to the bases, so retirees, active duty members, dependents, to be able to be carrying on base armed. The threat wasn't as high then, or known as much as we see now inside the continental United States. But now we have this threat. The threat was exploded under the Biden administration with all of these millions of illegals that are unverified, unvetted, from Afghanis to Chinese military-age males, to Venezuelans, Iranian sleeper cells. You've got the standard Russian threat is still out there. The Cubans, even our own friends sometimes send spies and threats into our country these days. So, I'd implore the installation commanders, you have the power. Authorize your concealed carry holders to carry and take a serious look at the risks that it would be to go ahead and arm your troops when they're on duty. Because when we send them overseas to fight in combat zones, they're all armed. Every single one of them. They're already trained to be armed.
And now we're getting reports, Colonel, that ABC News is reporting that it was an American soldier is the shooter. So apparently somehow he got a gun, but are you telling me that his fellow soldiers, if they're obeying the rules, they don't have a gun?
Exactly. I mean, not every car is searched. Not every person is searched when you're coming on base and standard security times, which is daily operation for the most part, unless there's a identified, verified threat to that specific installation. It's very rare to have 100% car searches and person searches coming on base. So it's not that difficult to carry a firearm onto the base, especially if you've got one in your glove compartment or in the vehicle and those kind of things. But it is illegal unless the installation commander has authorized it. And you can ask for that authorization. And like I said, it's within the power of these base commanders to go ahead and authorize concealed carry holders who are trained, vetted, already have base access, so they're vetted from that perspective, to be allowed to be carrying. Because really, you got a lot A lot of base security inside the United States today is done by what folks derisively call rent-a-cops. They're contract security. Many of them have military experience, but a lot of them don't either. And then a few randomly situated military personnel in and amongst that. Sometimes, not every time. It depends on the service and how they approach it. The base that I left, I had a large security element under my command, over 630 security officers. So a lot of my folks were routinely armed in their daily duties. So you have that and the law enforcement side of it, but sometimes it's not enough because they can't be there quickly. Look, we ran a test, one of the first tests for an active school shooting, because I had a K-6 public school on my base at Kirtland, and we did it on a Saturday. It had real players, real security forces at their posts where they would be on a day-to-day basis, even in heightened security times. And a shooter with a revolver, a 6-shooter revolver, was still able to kill 8 people in that test before the first security forces individual got there, and they were less than 300 yards from the school at their post. So it's just something that's got to be looked at especially for our military installations. Look, we're targets. You can only harden the base so much. It's not conducive to have 100% vehicle searches and 100% body searches coming into these bases, because in Albuquerque's situation, at that time there were 23,000 people living and working on that base. Most of them came through the gates to go to work. Quite frankly, so unless you've got a specific threat, it's very difficult to ramp up to that level of security and maintain it every day, 24/7, 365. So we have to have better solutions. Well, we have the solution. We have trained military personnel beyond the normal security that's armed, that could be armed easily with the stroke of a pen, literally, for the concealed carrier folks. And then there should be procedures, and I know there are, but maybe they need to be updated for installation commanders and unit commanders to be reviewing the daily intelligence to see if they do need to arm their folks. But quite frankly, the threat is so large now and so localized inside the United States, because we don't know where these millions of potential adversaries are and what they're doing.
Well, you're leading me right into my
They need to be thinking about arming their folks on a routine basis that are armed when they go to war.
You're leading me right into the next story without even knowing what I'm going to bring up. When you talk about all these terrorists that are now inside the country thanks to Biden. Look at this. This is FBI Director Kash Patel's Twitter feed 3 hours ago. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force arrested a man in Long Beach, California, for allegedly sending money to ISIS and pledging allegiance to a terrorist organization that targets Americans. I guess the FBI Los Angeles also recovered evidence of explosives. We will find and stop anyone who threatens American lives. All right. This is exactly what you, I, Annie, Usama, Sharam, the other experts we deal with, were saying is coming, is massive attacks on Americans with explosives, perhaps on the same day, perhaps coordinated. But this is not the first time that it looks like something has been found and stopped. A few weeks ago, did you see the video of a van pulled over? I think it was in New York, loaded with dozens and dozens of LP tanks and gasoline. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that, but that picture you just showed there, I don't know why the director is tweeting it out today, but that's about, I think, 48 hours ago or so. I've seen the picture of the device that they recovered from this guy. And as you probably remember, my first part of my Air Force career was as a bomb disposal technician. So improvised explosive device construction and rendering safe is one of the things that I have a little bit of expertise in. While it doesn't look like a greatly made device, and it looks like to me, and it's hard to tell because I don't have any x-rays to look at, see it internally and everything, but it looks like the guy would have to do like a suicide bomber thing with the switch on it and everything. But there are baggies with ball bearings inside that thing. And so it's definitely meant to be anti-personnel, regardless of whether it's a well-made homemade bomb or not. It doesn't matter. It's a large enough content of those ball bearings where many people standing around that thing, if they were within 20 feet of it, are going to get severely wounded or killed. And if it had some really good explosives in it and was well made, it would be more than 7 or 8 people just standing around at 20 feet away. It would go a long ways. I mean, there are large numbers of ball bearings in that device. So it's anti-personnel. They're trying to kill lots of people. And quite frankly, nobody should be surprised. The only thing people should be surprised about is that our alert system is not higher from a threat perspective internally from terrorism than it's sitting today. It should be higher.
Well, do we even
there
have
are
that?
Threat analysts from the CIA, former CIA threat analyst Sarah Adams, routinely reports that Al Qaeda has a plot to be bigger than 9/11,
and she's
that's
talking
coming
suicide.
here.
And she says it's suicide bombers. And
yeah, of course, the Islamists love suicide bombers.
Yeah, they get their 72 perpetual virgins.
Exactly.
But if you look off to the left in that picture, for the radio audience, I'll explain it. There is a switch. So you're right. It appears to be a suicide bomb because he would throw that switch. And this is what Sarah's saying. That they're going to
be, it's difficult to tell. I mean, it could be a switch to arm it too, so he could leave it in place
right,
to activate the electrical circuits and those.
But Sarah is warning that it's the suicide bombers that are coming, and they're coming in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-man teams. Or they're coming in teams where they will shoot and kill until the death. That they're going in as suicide kamikaze shooters that are not planning on coming out.
Yeah, and the people she's talking about are a lot more sophisticated than this guy who pledged to ISIS and those kind of things. If you hear the flag, I'm pledging to ISIS and those kind of things, and people aren't talking about Al Qaeda, folks need to really understand that Al Qaeda still exists, and they are here, and they have a plot. It's going to happen one way or the other at the time of their choosing, not ours. And we need to have a heightened alert. Really.
Yeah. Do we even have I'll ask you that when we come back. Do we even have a heightened alert to go to? We used to have it after 9/11, the different colors and the levels. Do we even have that anymore? I'll ask that on the other side. And then China and Russia just practiced major military drills together. Why?
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Colonel Rob Manus is my guest. His website, robmanus.com. He's on each and every day, live and then later on demand at worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com. Let me just say to our listening friends, pray for outlets like ours, Worldview Tube, VCY America, WROS in Jacksonville, Florida. Pray for our safety. Because you know what? These networks are putting on programming that puts them in the bullseye as well. Did you ever think about that? Well, you should. I have retired military people that say, call me up. Friends of mine I've known for years. Some of them that fought in Vietnam, strong Christians, say, Brandon, you and your broadcasters and the outlets that carry you in programs like yours and like Crosstalk, you guys have skylined yourself. You've skylined yourself. You're one of the few networks calling it out, talking about it the Islamic threat, the red-green axis, the Marxists, the Islamists. You guys have been doing it for years. You're on list, I can promise you. So pray for us, for wisdom, for discernment, for protection. Because again, we're getting more and more warnings from retired intel people about what is here and what their plans are. We're also, by the way, many of us, trying to do our best to be prudent with the budgets that we have. It's constant that we're going through our budgets, trying to find areas where we can cut and save. Found somewhere the other day we could cut and save $500 a month. We don't need that service anymore. And I said, get rid of that service. We don't need it. That'll save us $500 a month. We have other areas. We have been spending quite a bit of money in the technology IT area, because you got to spend money sometimes to save money. And we've been spending quite a bit over the last few months to get rid of services that we pay for. And I won't say the name of the company. Most of you would know who I'm talking about. But our IT guy has worked for months and months and months and months to get us off that company's system, so that we're not dependent on them. We don't want them shutting us down, but we also don't want to pay them thousands of dollars a month. And if we can do it ourselves and be independent and save a few thousand dollars, I should say, a month, then that's more savings. And so we're just constantly going through and finding out, where can we save? Because we don't know what's going to go on with this economy. It could contract and giving drops and whatnot. And we got to be ready, folks, ahead of the curve. We can't wait till that happens and say, oh no, we don't have what we need to meet this month's budgets. We got to be looking in the future saying, what do we think is coming? How can we cut costs so that when those things happen, we're still here on the front line, giving you the quality news and information through the lens of a Christian worldview. So pray for us to have wisdom, to find those areas where we can cut, to have our IT guy and Logan have the wisdom to know what to do, where to do the cutting, or developing new systems of our own that are in-house. So I wish some of you could spend a day with me. Maybe one day we should just have a camera follow me around, follow the team around, to find out what it takes to run a 24-hour news group. It is all time consuming, and the cost is so high. And that goes for VCY America. It is just, unless you have been in this line of work, this occupation, this calling, you cannot understand fully how demanding it is 24 hours a day, and the constant cost, everything going up, and trying to serve your listeners and viewers with high level quality, but at the same time cutting costs so that you're ready for whatever's coming to this country and this world. So pray to that end. And I also say it just for those of you that do support us, so you know how frugal we try to be, how wise we try to be in keeping those costs down so we can continue to serve you. Now more than ever, right? Now more than ever. Colonel Rob Manus. Colonel, do we even have an alert system? I know after 9/11, we used to have various colors they used. Those were very confusing. I mean, people joked about it because it was so ridiculous. I don't know why they can't just give us 5 levels, 5 being the worst, 1's what we're at. But hey, it's the government. So tell me, do we even have an alert system, a level system, a rating system? And if we do, I don't know about it. So if I don't know about it, I doubt the average American knows about it.
They did away with that system because it was confusing, and it really stayed elevated to the maximum color for so long. People started ignoring it. But I do believe they do have some sort of alerting system. I saw one a few months ago come out, but it's very general in nature, and those kind of things. Now, the Department of Defense and any national security related entities that are on defense installations, they have a force protection condition system that we use there to do things like change whether we're doing 100% of vehicle stops and searches coming through the gates, and 100% identification checks to make sure that a driver's not being forced to come on base and bring somebody on base that's not authorized. So routinely we're at the low end of that FPCON system, is what we call it, and rarely go to its highest levels because you have to have a specific credible threat to really ratchet up to where you're closing the base down and you're searching everything and everybody that goes in and out, which is essentially, in layman's terms, what you would be doing from a perimeter perspective. And plus you're manning up, you're plussing up your shifts with extra people, so you're working people harder, and you can't sustain that for a very long time. So we focus on that, but still. Brandon, and I'll just tell you this. I also saw where yesterday a security forces airman killed a civilian at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base at a gate that drove through the gate without stopping, was driving erratically and hit a vehicle. Inside the gate, the security forces personnel on the air bases that are military are highly trained. They're trained what to do, and they're very good at it. I'm very proud of the security forces I commanded in the Air Force. They were great, young, most of them under age 25 of my 630-man unit. And they were very good. Those men and women were very good at what they do, but they can't be everywhere. That's the point. This situation today is probably an internal situation of the base. You mentioned the suspect as a soldier. Potentially, or at least dress like a soldier, which people should be expecting. If they get into the installation, they're going to try to conceal themselves until they get to the target that they want to get, which usually is going to be where there's a lot of people, especially people in uniform that aren't armed, a soft target, and try to kill as many people as possible, because obviously we're covering it on the news. But you didn't even hear about this young man that unfortunately had to kill a civilian driver that drove through the gate in Tucson, Arizona at the Air Force Base there. And his wing commander, the installation commander there, I just read the statement, said, we regret the loss of life, civilian life, but our airmen are trained and they followed policy to the letter. That's the kind of commander you want. What I'm saying is, let's take the next step to allow military personnel and former military personnel that have concealed carry permits and training to be able to routinely carry on your installations, because they may be the only one within 30 seconds or 3 minutes that's there to try to stop a loss of life, and it's just it's a very simple, relatively low risk solution. And then as your tolerance for risk goes up, you would look at in peacetime, when we're at home here in garrison, arming your troops routinely when they're at work, which they do in war zones all the time. We do that. We should be confident in those troops' ability to defend their units and their people and be professional with firearms here at home, just like we expect them to do it in a war zone.
We don't ask our police officers and sheriff deputies to disarm themselves when they come onto the grounds of their command posts or their buildings. I mean, why are we doing this to our military? Let's switch to China and Russia. Here's Newsweek. China and Russia make military maneuvers after Trump's nuclear threat. Here's another headline, American Military News. China and Russia hold major joint military exercise. What do you know about this, and what's the message they're sending? And is this back and forth from what was tweets and social media to now actual military maneuvers? Is this saying anything to you as to where we're at on this trajectory?
Remember earlier in 2024, we saw the Chinese and Russian strategic air forces, bomber forces, fly together in a joint military operation where they penetrated, or looked like they were going to penetrate, American airspace around Alaska, which was the first time we'd ever seen them flying together in the same formation, which takes a lot of pre-planning, and training together, interoperable radios, those kinds of things, and confidence in each other. So they've been practicing and planning for that for a long time. So we know that this type of activity has been planned for. And look, Putin and Xi didn't have to face anybody that was willing to say, hey, we're going to deter you, but if deterrence fails, we have the capability to destroy you if you choose to penetrate the deterrence and eliminate the deterrence aspect of this. And now we have a president of the United States and an administration and leaders in the Department of Defense, at least at the highest levels, that we're confident in. And this president, through an act of deterrence, attempt to deter Russia, signaled to Putin on Twitter, which is the equivalent, as I said, of the hotline between the Pentagon and the Kremlin in the Cold War days. Well, now Donald Trump can do it directly, and he does, right to Vlad. He said, hey, call your attack dag Medvedev off. He's threatening nuclear warfare. And I'll remind you that my submarines are the greatest nuclear submarine fleet in the world. We routinely patrol undetected 24/7, 365 everywhere in the world. You notice in that tweet, the president didn't outline which type of submarine or exactly where, but I will tell you, routinely in the entire world, we're there undetected with our nuclear submarines. And the Russians don't have much of that capability anymore like they had in the Soviet Union when they had parity with us. But then now you see joint exercises with China and Russia. That's another step. It's not escalation. It's a signal under the deterrence theory. It's a signal by two nuclear-armed powers that are adversaries of the United States or potential adversaries of the United States that feel like they've been threatened. And now they're going to do something to signal, short of attacking us or attacking our friends even, to demonstrate that they have this capability and resolve. And, latest reporting is that Putin has talked about putting the Oreshnik missiles in Venezuela coming into the Western Hemisphere. And I remind President Putin that don't forget the Cuban Missile Crisis. This president has already declared and has implemented a policy of strengthening the Western Hemisphere. He's not going to tolerate you putting long-range missiles that are capable of hitting the United States in a country in this hemisphere. It's not going to happen. But they're threatening it verbally, so that's a deterrent factor and a message to us.
Wow. Okay, we come back. I want to have you respond to this, and then we'll let you go so you can go do your show prep. Why are Russia and China militarizing the Arctic? Let's have the Colonel respond to that. And then, like I said, we got to let him go because he has his own broadcast coming up. And we're going to be joined by Alex Newman, two broadcast partners. And again, don't forget our national conference coming up, 22nd Annual National Worldview Weekend in beautiful Collierville, Tennessee. Alex Newman is one of the speakers, Gordon Chang, and so many more. Full details, worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. We'll be back with Colonel Rob Maness right after this. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. All right, welcome back. Let's have him respond, the Colonel, to two more things. Russia issues stark nuclear warning as Kremlin officials say Moscow is no longer bound by missile treaty. And then let's have him respond to this one as well. Why are Russia and China militarizing the Arctic? Cover these two for me before you go get ready for your own broadcast. Colonel, please.
Haven't seen the Arctic article, so I can't really comment on that from an educated perspective. But the other one, the same interview where Putin talked about putting the Oreshnik missile into Venezuela, I think he revealed that Russia was finally going to withdraw from the intermediate range ballistic missile treaty, which the United States under the last Trump administration withdrew from in 2018. So it's another step that Putin can take in this back and forth the strategic messaging on nuclear deterrence to say, hey, we hear you. We responded to you. Matter of fact, they put out a press release on Medvedev saying they didn't think that this was an escalation on the president's tweet, by the way. But that's what they're saying, is that we hear you. Just keep in mind that we can do things in our own right, too. We're equal to you from a nuclear weapons perspective. That's the way Russia sees themselves, as a peer from that perspective. And they're going to act accordingly. And it's all according to nuclear deterrence theory, just in the 21st century.
Did you anticipate this, Colonel? I mean, Russia's Oshnik rocket deployment in Latin America and the Caribbean reveals strategic military expansion. That's over at the Boston Times. Were you expecting this 2-3 years ago, 5 years ago, to basically see us what looks like moving back into the Cold War?
Well, we talked about the potential moves when you first interviewed me about the president's tweet about Medvedev, where I told you, I said, hey, here are the possible things that could happen if this becomes an escalatory situation. And so far, this is just verbal. It's verbal messaging. Nothing's been moved. We have very good visibility on our own hemisphere and the rest of the world too, from a surveillance perspective, from our orbiting assets and those kind of things. So we'll know if something tries to move into this hemisphere along the lines of an Oreshnik missile system, and we'll stop it one way or the other. It will be stopped. There's no doubt in my mind, and President Putin knows that. He might have gotten away with actually moving them in and putting them in place under the Biden administration, but that's not going to happen here. So I see this more as, so far, strategic messaging. It's this deterrence messaging that's going back and forth, just to get the playing field set and the table set that these are two major nuclear powers, and now Russia has brought China into it, based on America's bad decisions, by the way, in Ukraine. That's why they have a defense pact now that they're exercising.
Colonel Rob Maness, his website, Rob Maness, Maness, robmaness.com, each and every day here on Worldview Tube, live and on demand. Colonel, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your service, and thank you for the service that continues. As they say, the oath is never retired. We appreciate you being on our broadcast team.
Thank you, Brandon.
Colonel Rob Maness checking in, guys. All right, we're going to be joined by Alex Newman here in just a minute. Hey, don't forget, a Crosstalk with Jim Schneider comes up at the top of the hour on the VCY America Radio Network, vcy.org, vcy.org. Last night, I did a whole segment, if you will, for Brandon House Live on artificial intelligence in America's schoolrooms. If you read my third book in 1995, Reclaiming a Nation at Risk, and no, you don't need to go buy it, and it's not out of date, because a lot of that book is just historical facts. You can get it for free if you're a member of our vault. All my books are there as a PDF, all 17 of them, at worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldviewtube.com/vault, VAULT. And that's 35 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, and so much more. But in that chapter, and I brought out some of the quotes last night, we have since the early 1960s, starting around 1963, the educrats, they have wanted to use computers to reinforce in a model of B.F. Skinner, behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner, who believed he could basically make a pigeon a high achiever if he just reinforced the right behaviors on a proper and timely schedule. I'm not kidding you. He said that. And he said, if I can do this with animals, I can do it with people. And the attitude value changing machine was being discussed in the 60s. There were people then warning in the 70s that this was coming and warning Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, against it, who gave us the Department of Education. We had an article in the early 70s, before Jimmy Carter. We had an article in the Washington Star, the newspaper that's now defunct, but an article in the Washington Star where one of the guys that was in charge of what was the pre-runner to the Department of Education, was calling for a database, a national database that would start a file in every school child in America and know everything there is to know about their family, their health, everything. And the experts would write a prescription where there's areas of weakness that need to be fixed. Now, I wrote that whole chapter for that book in 1995. In 1995, I wasn't thinking about artificial intelligence. Neither were you. Neither were they, for the most part. I don't know, maybe some of these futurists were telling us what was coming. But the average bureaucrat wasn't thinking about it. I certainly didn't have it in my radar as to the technology. And I don't think really anyone did in 95. And now here we are. And did you know, and I played last night, news reports from news stations where students are now getting their own AI buddy. Their own AI buddy that will teach them on their iPad. And each individual child will be remediated in their areas of weakness. Remember, you just take B.F. Skinner, behavioral psychologist, and you mix that with Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy, which any public school teacher in the government school, even if you're in any institution, you've likely studied Bloom's taxonomy. And his whole idea was changing fixed beliefs, attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs, and that you would challenge a student's fixed beliefs and change them. Of course, who fixed them there? The parent. Which, of course, is why you have quotes by educrats talking about every child who enters school at the age of 5 is mentally ill because he comes to school with an allegiance toward our founding fathers, this form of government that we have, et cetera, et cetera. Every child is sick. Isn't that what I would call the truly international child of the future? Dr. Pierce of Harvard from the early 70s said that. That's in my book from 95. And so they've been talking since at least 1963 about using computers to reinforce attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs. And now add in fact, I even showed last night a quote from a document from the Department of Education from Minnesota in the 1990s, where it talked about machines, and teachers are going to be out of date because machines will become the information givers. Now add in AI. AI. One educrat talked about the great things about these computers is that no one will be able to get in between the child and the curriculum. That's right, because you're not bringing home a textbook. Will you know what this AI is teaching your child? No. Your child in these videos that we're watching from news stations, these kids sitting at their desk with earphones on, hooked into iPads, working on their individual lessons. Quite scary to think about where we're going, folks. But it's something they've been working on since 1963, and I have all the quotes, all the documentation in that book from 1995. So you might want to watch that segment from last night when it gets posted online at worldviewtube.com. Gives us a little idea of the worldview war and how they're using technology to make sure no one gets between the child and the curriculum. Well, we're going to be joined now by Alex Newman. Do we have Alex, guys? We're trying to ring Alex. Okay. I do have some good news here. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, he is calling for removing the nonprofit status of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is really, that is Muslim Brotherhood. So hopefully that will happen. All right, joining me now is Alex Newman. Alex, welcome back to the broadcast. I was just talking about a segment I did last night coming out of my book in 95 on computers, machines. Since 1963, they've been talking about using machines and computers to reinforce the Bloom's taxonomy, the right thinking way to think. And you combine that with B.F. Skinner and Benjamin Bloom, behavioral psychologist Benjamin Bloom, B.F. Skinner with Benjamin Bloom, and boom. And then you add AI to it. And I was showing news stories last night where more and more news stations are reporting on kids having their own AI buddy to give them customized classes. And that's what I was saying in my book in 95. The computers would be doing this individualized to the child's areas of weakness. Of course, that's their weakness would be their areas of not conforming to the right attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs. Are you also tracking this AI coming into the classrooms that will be used like this for drilling in a timely and specific time period so that kids are thinking the way the government wants them thinking?
Yeah, I've been covering it for years, Brandon. I'm so glad we're talking about it. I actually just gave a major talk on this in Tulsa, Oklahoma, just a few weeks ago. And what I argued was that they're essentially using behavioral conditioning, behavioral psychology, operant conditioning, the very tools that B.F. Skinner and Bloom and others developed, combining that with artificial intelligence. They've got a new marketing slogan they call social emotional learning, which is deeply rooted in the occult. All of this combined is the most powerful tool for manipulating a child's thoughts, actions, behaviors, values, and worldview that has ever existed in the recorded history of mankind. It is truly astounding. And they've been doing this for quite a while now. In 2019, the UN brought together all the governments of the world in Beijing, and they came up with they call it the Beijing Consensus on Artificial Intelligence and Education. And they admit in this document they're going to be using the AI and the data gathering combined with the AI to manipulate and change the attitudes, values, thoughts, beliefs, and worldviews of children. So this is a very real threat. They've perfected this over 100 years. A lot of this goes back to Lev Vygotsky. A lot of it goes back to Pavlov, the guy who conditioned the dogs to salivate when they heard the bell. These are the same principles supercharged by artificial intelligence being used to condition, right? We're not talking about education here. We're talking about behavioral conditioning, where a child is conditioned to have a certain response. Now we're dealing with emotional response to a given stimuli.
Wow. Okay, we're going to have more of this with Alex Newman of libertysentinel.org. We also carry his broadcast at worldviewtube.com. And he'll be one of the keynote speakers at our upcoming 22nd Annual National Conference in beautiful Collierville, Tennessee, outside of Memphis. Full details at worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. We'll have more with Alex Newman again. He's with libertysentinel.org. We'll have more with him right after this break. Don't go away. Oh, by the way, if you want to get a stack of business cards, they're absolutely free. They talk all about our broadcasts and our programs. We've now sent out, they tell me, over 20,000 of these free of charge. You can get them free, a stack, at worldviewstore.com. We'll be right back.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace Elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio website, worldviewradio.com. Here's a headline over at libertysentinel.org. Schools teach mental health, but conceal curriculum. Well, this is going to increase as we have AI bots teaching AI buddies, teaching each individual kid and working on their areas of weakness. Because after all, as Dr. Pierce of Harvard said in the early 70s, every child who enters school at the age of 5 is mentally ill because they've spent time with mom and dad. They're too patriotic, too nationalistic, right? Remember the state senator in Nebraska, Peter Hoagland, coming out against Christian schools? I have it on cassette tape. Remember, I've played the audio. I'm one of the only ones that has that. When I was talking about it in the mid 90s, one of his staffers called me and said, "It's not true. Stop lying." I said, "We have it on cassette tape." Click. We have it on cassette tape. Because when I was talking about it, someone in Nebraska sent it to me. "Hey, I have it on a cassette tape. Here it is." And we uploaded that to our vault. But he didn't think that parents should have the right to impose upon their children their worldview, which could make it difficult for them to live in this increasingly complicated world. He was talking about a Christian school. Here we go. Respond to this, please, Alex. It's an article, obviously, on your website.
Yeah, what we're seeing now is the invasion of the classroom with all these different technologies, all these dangerous philosophies. And when you look at the mental health component of this, we need to understand it. It's not what we're trained to think of as mental health, right? We're trained to think like, oh, you have some chemical imbalance in your brain, and so your friendly psychiatrist is going to prescribe you some drug that's going to fix your chemical imbalance. That's baloney. And you know, I don't want to go to rant about psychiatry. I consider it largely quackery. I mean, clearly there are people who have some issues that they need help with, but a lot of this is total pseudoscience. It's not medicine in the traditional sense of the term. These guys get together and they vote on what's going to be considered a disorder. They vote on what the symptoms are going to be. They vote on what the alleged treatment is going to be. And then even more dangerously, it serves as cover for totalitarians and for the New Agers. So what they have done here, they've created a system where anybody who gets labeled as mentally ill gets put on a path to treatment, gets immediately discredited. And their vision of mentally ill is very different than, say, yours or mine would be, right? Their understanding of mental illness is, oh, you're one of those Christians. Oh, you're one of those bitter clingers. Oh, you're clinging to your guns and your Bible. Oh, you believe Genesis really happened. Oh, you are a conservative. Like in the Soviet Union, if you didn't like communism, you were considered mentally ill, because how could a sane person not like communism? That's the system we're headed towards. And I've spoken to many psychiatrists who recognize these things and are very concerned about them. The medicalization of our children. These drugs are absolutely being used to make children pliable, complacent, easy to manipulate. So this is just dangerous on so many levels. And last but not least, mental health is also a cover for prying into the most sensitive details of an individual's life and also their family life. So they give these kids these surveys. A lot of them come out of the CDC. You know, how does your dad talk to your mom? What kind of food do you have in the refrigerator? Who smokes at your house? How much drinking is there at your house? You know, all these super intrusive questions. Then they start asking little 10-year-olds, how many sexual partners have you had? You know, how many sexual partners do you want to have? Things that are totally, totally inappropriate. They're gathering all this data, processing it through the algorithms, incorporating it into these dossiers they're building on the children, and then they're going to use artificial intelligence to try to plot out their entire life, to try to manipulate their values, and to try to steer them down a predetermined course. And as I've been explaining in talks across the country, Brandon, a lot of this is literally based on doctrines of demons in the most literal sense. If you listen carefully, a lot of the people leading these systems, developing these programs, they will tell you, I've got them on camera admitting that they are talking to spiritual entities, whether it be ascended masters or the spirits of dead people or interdimensional beings. I've got them on camera admitting these things. So this comes straight from the pit of hell. It's a mortal danger to your children, and parents, you must protect them.
Indeed. And yet, here we have at the Psychedelic Science Conference 2025. Did you hear my programming and see my programming on that, Alex? The Psychedelic Science Conference 2025 in Denver about a month or two ago?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No.
It was 8,000 people attended, including speaking keynote the governor of Colorado, the attorney general of Colorado, and these people, we showed the screenshots. We interviewed Carl Tykrib, one of our broadcast partners, and these people are talking about how you can use psychedelics to travel to another world, to get into, explore other worlds and even meet entities, right? You and I know they're using drugs for altered states of consciousness to encounter demons. They can call them more highly evolved individuals through the process of reincarnation, extraterrestrials, whatever they want. They're talking to demons.
Yep.
It's exactly what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
But
and it always ends with, now sacrifice some children for us. It's like,
And you had the governor of Colorado, the attorney general of Colorado, and then you had Rick Perry. A few years ago in 2011, he wanted to lead us to have a prayer rally at the Reliance Stadium, the response. Now he's speaking at the Psychedelic Science Conference and got up and said, yeah, I was urged not to do this. It would ruin my reputation. I shouldn't be here. But I think psychedelics are great for dealing with the TPSD, or what is that?
PTSD.
Yes, thank you.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, yep.
Yeah, he said we should use it for that. Now, people can debate and argue that, but I interviewed state senator of Texas yesterday, Bob Hall. He's trying to outlaw all these gummies, which he said are already a violation of federal law. These gummies, these drug gummies, these marijuana gummies in the gas stations, it's against federal law. But the Drug Enforcement Agency doesn't have the money and the authority, I guess, according to the senator, to do anything about it. And kids are getting these gummies, and after using even one of these gummies, are going from being a very outspoken, friendly extrovert to shutting down, not looking in the eye, staying in their room. They've had a mental change. In some of these cases, he says they're not coming back. The kids aren't coming back. But yeah, we got Rick
like
Perry
that
speaking at that.
Yep. No, I know of some of these stories personally, Brandon, where somebody picked up one of these drugs that are available anywhere, really. I mean, anywhere. You can find them in, smoke shops, things like this. They used to have the bath salts and all these weird herbs. And the young people consume these and they never come back. They develop symptoms that psychiatry would refer to as schizophrenia or, multiple personality disorder. Something really weird is happening. And there's a reason why the establishment is now promoting the use of all these drugs. I'm not a huge fan of the federal drug war. In fact, I think if we want to have a federal drug war, we ought to amend the Constitution. But we have to be very, very clear here. There is an agenda with marketing all these drugs to our young people. There's an agenda that Soros and the other evildoers are pushing to try to get people hooked on these drugs, to try to get people in an altered state of mind. I think part of it is it reduces your willingness to resist, and part of it is it puts you in communication, like you said, with these demonic entities.
And Alex, the music's playing, but I want you to hold 1 second. But did you know that the state senator last night said that some of these drug gummies that are being sold in gas stations, they're coming out of the Middle East?
Surprise!
So is Islam trying to drug out our kids so we can be more easily conquered? Amazing.
That's exactly what they're doing. But thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you having me
on. Hold right there. We're going to come out of this and stay a couple more minutes on Worldview Tube. I want you to stay tuned for Crosstalk with Jim Schneider, vcy.org. Thanks for watching. Take care. And we're back with Alex for a couple more minutes. Alex, think about that fact. That kids can walk into a gas station and pick up gummies that are drug-laced gummies coming out of the Middle East, says Senator Bob Hall. And these kids are having reactions, and some of them are never coming back. And he is trying to pass legislation to ban it. He said now the tip of the spear is we need all this for the military people that have come home and have this problem, these mental problems, these psychological problems from war. And I don't want to underestimate that or undermine it in any way, but they're using that, he said, to stop any push to ban it. And they want him to regulate it. And he says, there's really no way you can regulate this, okay? He said, I've studied it. The best thing we can do is pass a bill to ban it all. Well, guess what? The bill is being held up because the Democrats are hiding in New York and Illinois, the ones that claim to care about the children. Remember Jocelyn Elders under Clinton talking about the children? Well, the Democrats don't care about the children. Isn't it the Democrats, the Marxists, these whacked out liberals, they're the ones molesting the kids, sex change operations, et cetera, et cetera? They don't care about the
chopping
children.
them into pieces.
Exactly.
Chopping them into pieces in about protecting the children. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. These are the people who want to do post-birth abortions. It's an outrage. And on that same note, we've got the communist Chinese now taking over huge parts of the so-called legal drug industry. They're moving into a lot of. I've done reporting on this for the New American. They are coming in and taking over marijuana farms, legal and illegal. Even in super conservative states like Oklahoma, some of the Midwestern states, you've got communist Chinese front groups coming in and operating these drug companies. And trust me, the communist Chinese are not selling your kids drugs just because they're wanting to make money. They're not selling your kids drugs just because they want your kids to have help with their PTSD or whatever. They're doing it for very, very nefarious purposes. Almost certainly the same general idea for why Middle Eastern sources will be pumping this stuff into our country.
Why do you think we have such a spike of female teachers molesting children? One last week we saw in the New York Post. She was married, young gal, sending self-made pornographic videos to a minor. She's going to get 5 years probation, I guess. Yesterday we saw there is a lady that was engaging in sexual behavior with a minor. She's a school teacher. She's about to be sentenced. It's almost on a daily basis. You can find stories somewhere in the country where school teachers, and a lot of them are women. You and I, when we were growing up, I'm 56, so I'm a little bit older than you are, but we didn't have this. I guarantee you, even though you're younger, you didn't have this in your day and age either. Why do you think we have so many female predators now? You often think of male predators, not female predators, right? Why female predators? What's going on?
Well, I think partly it's been glorified by the perverts in Hollywood, right? The older woman chasing the younger, sexy boy, man, whatever. I think part of it is the shift in our culture. I think part of it is Romans 1. You suppress the truth in your unrighteousness. God hands you over to a reprobate mind after this period of confusion. And it seems like that's what our whole culture is going through right now, where every kind of conceivable perversion is not just being normalized, but celebrated. We now have, at least in the liberal corners of academia and other areas, we have this effort to normalize pedophilia. They call it minor attracted person. We've got people now claiming that pedophilia is just a different sexual orientation. I've got people within the school system admitting on camera that they have to teach their kids about pedophilia because it's just a different sexual orientation that existed through history. So yeah, why would we be surprised by this kind of disgusting behavior?
Well, here's the article from the Daily Mail. Teacher pleads guilty to years-long sex abuse of 13-year-old schoolgirl. And I guess she's going to be sentenced, this teacher. I had on Dr. James Thorpe last night, and we were going to talk about medicine, but he was watching my segment before he came on. And he said, I hate to divert too much attention from our chosen topic, but he said, let me tell you what's going on in Gulf Breeze, Florida. And he started laying out what's going on in his town with this same kind of problem and the perversion within, he says, the local government, what people are doing. And he just laid out a laundry list of what was going on off the top of his head in his own town of like 6,000 people. I started putting into search engines Gulf Breeze, Florida, and what he was talking about. And I was pulling up one article after another. And he's like, this is little Florida, Gulf Breeze, Florida. He was irate last night, and well, he should be. It was righteous indignation. But this is going on all over the country. You see it. You and I both probably visit hundreds of news websites a day in our occupation and job of prepping for programming, but also posting articles on our websites. It's everywhere. It is stunning. I don't think the average American maybe realizes it to this degree because they don't scan as many websites a day as we do. Closing comment?
That's right. Yeah, and it's going to get worse. So I encourage people to get over to libertysentinel.org, go to thenewamerican.com, check out Classical Conversations. And thank you very much for having me, Brandon. Always a pleasure. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Alex Newman checking in, libertysentinel.org. He'll be a keynote speaker again at our national conference coming up October 3rd. That's a Friday night. And Saturday, October 4th. Don't forget about our optional concert, banquet, and keynote address on Thursday night in the beautiful area of Collierville. Full details, worldviewstore.com. Take care.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
The Russian government has engaged in espionage against Americans. They have hacked American websites, American accounts of private people, of institutions. Then they have given that information to WikiLeaks for the purpose of putting it on the internet. This has come from the highest levels of the Russian government, clearly from Putin himself, in an effort, as 17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed, to influence our election. So I actually think the most important question of this evening, Chris, is finally, will Donald Trump admit and condemn that the Russians are doing this and make it clear that he will not have the help of Putin in this election, that he rejects Russian espionage against Americans, which he actually encouraged in the past. Those are the questions we need answered. We've never had anything like this happen in any of our elections before.
That was a great pivot off the fact that you want open borders, okay? How did we get onto Putin?
Continue to get help from him because he has a very clear favorite in this race. So I think that this is such an unprecedented situation. We've never had a foreign government trying to interfere in our election. We have 17 intelligence agencies, civilian and military, who have all concluded that these espionage attacks, these cyber attacks, come from the highest levels of the Kremlin, and they are designed to influence our election. I find that deeply disturbing, and I think it's
She has no idea whether it's Russia, China, or anybody else.
I am not quoting myself.
She has no idea.
I am quoting
Hillary, you have no idea.
17 do you doubt 17
Our
military
country has
and
no idea.
civilian agencies? Well,
Yeah.